Yes. All right, everybody, we are talking adrenal fatigue. And what are the 8 best ways to end adrenal fatigue that even your doctors don't know about?
Okay, so let's play a game of truth or dare. Better yet, okay, let's do this. Let's do 3 myths and 5 truths. It's truth bomb time, and it's all about the adrenals. Here we go, everybody.
Truth or dare, truth bomb edition for adrenal fatigue. I love it, Dr. Maggie. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I'm Anna Manuel alongside Dr. Maggie Yu, and this is going to be a really popular topic.
I'm Maggie, MD, and I am a functional medicine physician, the creator of the Transform creative Transform protocol for turning around any chronic disease around naturally. Author of the upcoming book, 8 out of the box ways to transform your health.
And get excited for this book. I can't wait to talk more about your book in the future, but yes. And tonight we're also talking about 8 ways, but you've switched it up a little bit on us. We're doing 8 things, but we're going to actually do 3 myths and 5 truths all about adrenal fatigue.
Yeah. And what I want to do is before we jump into the myths, which we're going to get into, if you're watching from YouTube right now, I would love for you to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up on this channel, or tag somebody on Facebook or YouTube. If there's somebody you want to share this with, share this to your social media. If there's anyone you know that could learn more about adrenal fatigue or needs to turn around adrenal fatigue. Number 1. Number 2, what I would love is if you're watching, if you can comment in the comment section below, tell me what has been your experience with adrenal fatigue. Has it been believed? Is it real? Is it not? Do you have any questions about adrenal fatigue? Go ahead and put it in the chat, because your comments over the past week is what has shaped this live, and it's going to shape this live today. If you have any questions or experience, feel free to put it in chat. I would love to hear from you. And anybody who's currently in any of our programs, alumni, if you could type alumni in chat, let me know where you're watching from. That'd be really great. We have a team of alumni we have a whole bunch of alumni that always participate in our lives, and I always call them our student teachers. So if you have a question, ask it. Sometimes it's not me who's going to answer it. Sometimes it'll be one of our alumni who'll be answering it.
And you know that this person's an alumni. Hello, stage 2 adrenal fatigue.
Yes.
Sounds like Dr. Maggie speaking, and a lot of alumni chiming in. So thank you so much for being here and sharing your experience about how real you think adrenal fatigue is. And you mentioned that. Is it real, Dr. Maggie? Because that's a question that other doctors mention.
Yeah.
I had a doctor tell me it wasn't real from this person right here.
Yes. And Michi, good to see you. Another person, another of our alumni in our program. But I want you guys to think about this. How many of you have been told that adrenal fatigue is not real? And Ann and I, a couple months ago, did a whole live around like fact and fiction around adrenal fatigue, where I blew the lid open on the fact that it's a complete myth that adrenal fatigue isn't real. It's 100% real. It's so real, in fact, that I'm going to blow the second myth. Okay. But before we get to the second myth, I'm going to say, if you want to get a replay of the adrenal training that I did about 2-3 months ago about whether adrenal fatigue was real or not, type in the comment section, real or not training, or adrenal training, type out in chat, and our team will get it to you. So I've explored this in depth. I even went over Ann's adrenals results on one of our lives.
Oh, yeah, I forgot about that. Yes,
we did. Yes. We did. We went over Ann's hormone results and adrenal results on one of our lives, just so you guys know. So yeah, if you want to, that as a resource. So I blew that myth out of the water in a whole training. So if you want that training, type that training in chat. Now, yes, adrenal fatigue is real, correct? That's an established fact. And why is it an established fact? It's because of myth number 2.
Okay.
Doctors
can you test for it, Dr. Maggie? How would you test for it? Doctors don't know how to test for it.
Yes, yes, and hell yes. I'm going to ask anyone who's actually worked with me in my hormone masterclass or in our Transform program that was adrenal fatigue real for you? And did you test for it? And did you get the answers you needed? Type in chat if you can test for adrenal fatigue, because the truth is, absolutely, adrenal fatigue can be measured scientifically with testing. Okay. It's absolutely true. And the problem is that the doctors don't know how, your conventional doctors don't know how to test for adrenal fatigue. Our conventional medical system is really made only to test for what we call adrenal overload, like crazy ass high adrenals, which we call Cushing's, or no adrenal function, which we call Addison's disease. So, from a blood test or even urine testing standpoint, your medical doctor only knows about all or none.
But yet
And
there's so much in between. And if you're not falling in that perfect sweet spot, you're probably dealing with some symptoms.
there's 8 shades of gray to adrenal fatigue.
8 shades of gray. Make it sound so sexy.
Sure. Maybe that's my next book. 8 shades of gray to adrenal fatigue.
You're a medical writer, not erotic.
I love it. I can make it sound like erotic. I really can. If you want that as my next book, type in chat. Next book, 8 shades of adrenal.
Well, you know, one of the stages is called arousal.
Arousal. Ned, I love you. Each one is arousal. Oh my god.
We're getting zesty here today.
Oh my god, totally zesty. And I know who said zesty too. So you absolutely can test for adrenal fatigue. You can't test for it with your regular conventional doctor via their blood test, their urine test, their urine testing, because their testing is made to identify all or none. And the rest of us live in these shades of gray of what is actually the reality of adrenal fatigue. Listen, we don't treat thyroid as all or none. You don't have crazy ass thyroid or no thyroid, and that's the only problem. All the thyroid hormone problems is actually top, bottom, and everything in the middle. Adrenals are the same. So what's the best way to test for adrenal fatigue? When you like to know, we actually talked about it in one of our trainings, multiple of our trainings. Type adrenal testing if you're actually interested in learning more about adrenal testing. I actually have a hormone guide where I go through all the symptoms of hormone imbalance, including adrenal hormone imbalance, and includes a lot of additional trainings around hormones and adrenals. And I can already answer it right now. You can test your adrenals, and the best way to test for it is actually with saliva hormone testing. And yes, and the reason is because adrenals have a curve. Okay. So I'm going to go in a little background into this. So you can test, someone already wrote saliva hormone testing. Absolutely. We actually in our store carry a saliva hormone test kit that's completely tests your sex hormones as well as your adrenal hormones. We could put a link to that in the chat. However, here's the problem. So let's go through that. Best kind of testing for adrenals is going to be saliva hormone testing. And the reason is why? Well, I'm going to talk about it in a second. So the adrenals, where are the adrenals? The adrenals is right in your back. Right? Oh, can't get that far. It's right above the kidneys. They're like like you have kidneys, and on top of it are these 2 little adrenal glands. And they're small, but they're really powerful. The adrenals on the outside is the adrenal cortex, and on the inside is the adrenal medulla. The cortex, the outer covering of the adrenals, is responsible for some of the hormones that we think a lot about adrenals, which is your DHEA, your cortisol. The cortex is responsible for a lot of the cortisol measurements that we're measuring. And cortisol has a curve. It goes up in the morning and goes down in the evening. Okay. And so if you right? And you've seen this. If you just draw your blood, just one blood cortisol, one DHEA, and say, oh, you don't have a problem. I don't know how they can tell because it's different all throughout the day. And the key isn't a spot measurement. It's what's happening throughout the day. And these curves have patterns. And somebody just said stage 1 adrenal fatigue. Yes, it's arousal. And there are specific ways to tell these patterns. Unfortunately, here's the problem. Even if a doctor, even if you order your own adrenal testing, it's hard to know which stage of adrenal fatigue you're really in. And there's also patterns and exceptions to some of these rules. So for me, number one, I think it's great to get the data. Data is king. If you don't have a provider being able to order that for you, you can certainly self-order that from our website. And we'll provide the link there. Number 2 is that once you get the results, and even if a doctor orders a saliva hormone testing for you, A lot of them aren't trained on all these patterns of adrenal fatigue. So there are all these stages of adrenal fatigue, which you guys who are in my programs know about. If you're interested in learning these patterns, like not only just testing, but getting you yourself trained on what these patterns are, we have a whole program around it called My Hormone Masterclass. This specifically is around sex hormones and adrenals, where you get testing and you learn with education and you go over results live with me. So that's My Hormone Masterclass. And yes, you absolutely can test your adrenals. And scientific fact, there are these patterns that show up and there are stages of adrenal fatigue. So scientifically, you can actually get the data, and data is king. In fact, that's the name of my last chapter of my book. Data is king, and you can get data on it.
Well, and that's what I love so much about going through your program is you're not just giving everybody generalized information. It's all about your personal data, and you're looking at where do they stand and which stage of adrenal fatigue you fall in, and you'll have different recommendations based on that.
Yeah. And the other part of this is adrenals isn't just about DHEA and cortisol, which is the adrenal cortex. There's also the inside of the adrenals, which is called adrenal medulla. The medulla of the adrenals actually create your epinephrine, norepinephrine. These are what we call our fight or flight hormones. So and these don't just act throughout your body and around your heart and your circulation. Your brain utilizes norepinephrine and epinephrine, and it severely impacts your mood.
Well, and Dr. Maggie, we were talking about this, just you and I personally. So many of us deal with that fight or flight, whether it's a very acute situation or whether it's throughout the day and there's small things happening. But when you talk about classic examples of fight or flight, do you want to share any stories?
Yeah. So here's the thing. I was going to go last on this, but let's just go right into it, which is the top lessons we really want to learn from adrenals. And look, we are the best teachers in our areas of greatest suffering. Think about that for a second. You are the best teacher in your area of greatest suffering. And my area of greatest suffering is in adrenal health. I know a lot of people who know about me and my story know that I went into early menopause at the age of 36, but that wasn't it. It wasn't that I just went into early menopause, which we think about as our sex hormones. I went into full-blown stage 3 adrenal fatigue, which means I had nothing left in me. And I really want to point out something, which is that one of the third myths about adrenal fatigue is that it can only be ended or dealt with by supplementation. Yes, we are going to talk about supplementation, but I think the biggest point I want to share is really a story of what I went through in the last 3 months as a great example. When we think about the adrenal gland, specifically about the adrenal medulla, we think about fight or flight. And I really want to explore this topic around what's your fight, what's your flight, because those of us that have adrenal fatigue, this is the underlying thought and emotional pattern that's triggering this havoc of all these adrenal hormones. Okay, fight or flight. How many of you, think about it for a second right now, every day is living in a state of fight or flight? How many of you know it? And how many of you don't know it and is just starting to realize it?
Yeah.
And I can tell you right now that I want to go a little bit deeper on fight versus flight in making it how it showed up in my life. When we think of, thank you for sharing. Yeah, Nathaniel, same thing, right? Regina said every day. See, it's so many of us are in fight or flight. You don't even realize it. And I want to share with you guys my own experience just this week I had a wake-up call on fight or flight for me. I recently moved to a new home. That's why you guys are seeing a new studio here. And I have been working really hard, tight deadline on publishing my book. And I was under a lot of stress. And interestingly, we just say stress, stress, stress. But I want to define when we say fight, when we say what flight is. Fight typically is a lot of times is think about it as anger or rage or attack. How many of you, your go-to reaction to stress is actually anger, rage, or attack? And be honest with yourself, because I wasn't honest with myself. Okay? Because under duress and stress, when we go to fight or flight, most of us don't realize that anger, rage, and attack is just another way with which we are dealing with stress. Okay. It's not just your typical stress, but fight is a real response to stress. So I didn't realize that just over the past 3 months, how much my go-to emotion became anger, irritability, even rage, and how attacking I was with people close to me. And, and I had a wake up call earlier this week where I was unkind. I responded in a very irritated, and can we take that off a little bit? Sorry.
Yeah, it was an impactful comment.
So I really responded in a very unkind and angry manner to somebody who really needed my love, care, and support.
Mm.
And then I went into flight. Let's talk about flight. What is flight? Flight, fight or flight, right? Flight is actually, you think about somebody running away, but what it really is for most of us is either fear or shame.
Beating yourself up, I think, too.
Shaming yourself, right? Think about how often you're in the fear mode and in a shame mode and beating yourself up. Like I oscillated. I didn't realize just how extreme that oscillation had been for me over the last 3 months, building and building and building. And I kept thinking, nobody else is going to see it. Nobody else is going to see it. Right. And until it really spilled out, where this week I snapped. I really did snap because I was just anger, rage, irritability. And then I finally had a wake up call and caught myself. And then I went into shame, guilt, and fear. Oh my gosh, what's everyone going to think about me now?
That's a terrible feeling.
Yeah. I bawled my eyes out earlier today because I effed up. Right? And this is the reality though. And I'm ashamed of how I behaved earlier this week. I really am. But this is where I realized that we don't realize just how much fight or flight dominates us. And it becomes our go-to every day. And we just say we're stressed. But it's really important that the most important thing that you guys could do to end adrenal fatigue is to recognize the pattern of fight or flight that's in you, that's happening every day. Because every time you go fight or flight, you're actually triggering your adrenal medulla to release adrenaline, which is epinephrine, norepinephrine, okay? And that's causing these huge swings in emotional state. And it's affected by your adrenal hormones. Adrenal hormones really feed and respond to our emotional state, right? And it can sneak up so much so that, you sometimes will need a wake-up call, and sometimes it's the data from your adrenals, and sometimes it's the trail of tears you've left behind because of your own fight or flight, right?
I want to say thank you for sharing that personal story, because so many people, first of all, don't even recognize that they did something like that, have the remorse, the introspectiveness to want to do something different in the future. So a lot of respect for you for being able to recognize that, share that, and want to correct it, because we all deal with that. We all do that. We all snap on people when we don't want to. And most often it's some of the people that are closest to us, right? That we love the most, or that we want to care for the most, or help the most. And like you were saying, this is all about adrenal. We're fight, we're flight, and we need to find ways to better manage that so that these things don't happen and we don't have that cycle of guilt and shame.
Yeah. In our adrenal module, in our transform program, I actually go through an exercise and a tool, and it's called Circle of Control, and all the alumni will know that. And just to reference that, is that we focus so much on the things we really don't have control over. And what happens is, in the middle of the target is actually what we can control 100%. We actually focus most of our time focusing on things that we have no control, even influence over. And as a result, the area we actually do have control over gets smaller and smaller and smaller. So it's really fascinating. There are a variety of tools I think about, but my biggest aha this week was how much I need to be first aware of my own fight or flight. And the emotions associated with them are anger, irritability, or rage, or attack, right? And the flight would be fear, and shame. Just so really, if those are emotions that you wrestle with throughout the day, your adrenals are going to be wrestling throughout the day right there with it. So it is really high time to recognize that pattern and realize the impact of that on your adrenal health.
Because you can only tax those adrenals for so long, right? Before you
Yeah.
start changing stages and you're in stage 1 to 2 to 3. And like you said, and you have nothing left.
Yeah. And I didn't realize how much this drained me over the past 3 months, how little capacity I have left. Which is why for me, I am going to talk about supplementation, right? Because there are mechanisms with which supplements do help with a lot of different parts of adrenal fatigue. So I'm going to tie in some science here. I know like people are like, some people really love it when I talk about like the thoughts and the thought patterns that really trigger and tie into scientific principles. Some people say, just get to the science of just like, what are some botanicals, different things that you do. So I look at adrenal fatigue. There's stage 1, stage 2, and stage 3. And stage 1 is arousal, right? Stage 2 and 3 adrenal fatigue is where we start talking about like lower adrenal function. So when we're talking about stage 2 or stage 3 adrenal fatigue, something like Pro-Adrenix to me is a really optimal supplement to take. And the reason behind it is that it is what we call a glandular support. Glandular support means there's actual glandular material in there. Okay. So yes, this is an animal-based product with glandular support, but there's a reason behind it because glandular support contains the hormones. So it contains just enough adrenal DHEA, cortisol, norepinephrine, epinephrine to actually go to a tired adrenal gland and say, hey, I'm your coach. Wake up, wake up. Wake up. How many of you guys are in the morning, like tired as heck, and you're dependent on coffee? Because I already know there's a lot of people watching that have had their adrenal tested, know their stage 2 or stage 3 adrenal fatigue, started Pro-Adrenix, and they no longer need coffee anymore because the coffee was the Band-Aid to their adrenal fatigue. How many of you are falling in that boat?
I'm wondering too, how quickly, once you start something like this, can you notice some changes?
That's the beauty of also glandular support versus, let's say, just herbal support, right? So glandular, because it is got immediately a small amount of hormonal support in there, the results can be pretty immediate. So we're talking about sometimes within days. Typically, if you're taking a glandular support within 1 to 2 days, within 1 to 2 weeks, actually, people will really notice a big difference in their energy level, their focus, their immune function. Here's the thing. There's actually studies that actually show that when you actually take a glandular support, which is an adrenal glandular support, it can actually help decrease inflammation, boost your, balance your immune system. It can help with other hormonal function. Did you guys know that your adrenal DHEA, for example, is a mother hormone that will turn into testosterone, estrogen? So it actually helps support sex hormone production as well. Did you know that your adrenal hormone cortisol interacts to help you make or decrease melatonin? It actually balances up and down what's going on with melatonin. So it's working in tandem with it to help you with your wake and sleep cycle.
It really impacts so many aspects of your life. For some doctors to say it's not even real, when truly, listen to how it impacts everything. And this person, by the way, said it took about a month on supplementation.
Yeah. The results will start sometimes within a week or 2, and typically around 1 to 3 months, you're going to start seeing some peak effect with it, right? And so someone just said flatline. So that's stage 3 adrenal fatigue right there. Yep. Getting ready to retest. Love it. And here's the thing is I love the fact that our alumni, people go through our Let's See My Hormone Masterclass, they're going to retest and see what is the additional new data. How is my body responding to the support? That's additional data with which you tweak, you pivot to get to your results faster.
Mm-hmm. So,
I would love to know how many people out there have been dealing with adrenal fatigue for years, or maybe a decade, 2 decades. Really importantly, compress the time it takes to go from adrenal fatigue to spectacular. How do you compress that time? Number 1, test. Number 2, educate yourself on what these stages of adrenal fatigue is. Number 3, proper supplementation can shorten the time to results and success, right?
Because this, Dr. Maggie, 40 years.
No, 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 no. Ain't nobody got 40 years to turn around adrenal fatigue. How about 4 months? How about 4 weeks to really get this really ball rolling, right? Let's compress the time for this user from 40 years to how about in the next 2 to 4 months, right? So this is where supplementation to me does fast track improvement, does compress the time. And when you actually, the other thing that is, this is a new formulation that we recently did, which was Power Adrenal Next Plus. And the reason this plus, believe it or not, is what we did was we actually got rid of a lot of extra ingredients. So what you find is a lot of adrenal supplements will put a lot of ingredients in there. And you can take a look at the back of some of these bottles. There can be upwards of 20 plus ingredients in there. And it's problematic for people we talk to because how many of you guys have reaction to supplements? How many of you guys have reactions to food? How many of you react to medications? Well, then doesn't it make sense to then, if you're going to take a supplement, to have the least amount of ingredients that's the most effective, and that those least amount of ingredients working together to actually bring results. So that's why for me, we lowered the number of ingredients. The current number of ingredients are way low on this adrenal support right now. And the strength of it is in the glandular support. So this is good for people with stage 2, stage 3 adrenal fatigue. However, that's not like a great blanket rule because, well, a lot of people with adrenal fatigue where they're starting to really flatline can have these spikes in cortisol, which we call arousal spikes. So how many of you guys, I'm just going to ask you right now, how many of you guys are wired and tired? You have, you're tired in the morning, but all night long you're.
You know it's me right now, Maggie. You know this.
I know it's you.
Well, fall asleep. You know, there's so many of us out there that like something happens to us at night and boom, we're raring to go. But yet we really need that sleep because we're exhausted in the morning.
Yeah, absolutely. And because the adrenals aren't just high or low, there's patterns. You're supposed to peak in cortisol in the morning, but then at night, your cortisol is supposed to go down. How many of you guys have been through our programs found that your cortisol, instead of going down all night, is going up all night?
Yes.
Fitnet's raising her hand. Hell yes, right?
Yes.
Right? Hell to the yes, right?
Oh, I like this. Manic to malaise.
Right? Lachey, I haven't seen you in ages. She remembers being in arousal state or adrenal fatigue. She says, I am never going back. Hell no, right? And I don't know how many years or months Lachey was in adrenal fatigue. How long did it take to turn it around? Let's compress that time. And Sharon's talking about wired and tired. So the thing is, adrenals, one of the biggest myths around adrenal fatigue is that it's either high or low. I have high adrenals or I have low adrenals. It doesn't work like that. There's different patterns to it. However, there are certain periods of time when cortisol could be inappropriately high, and we call that arousal. And unfortunately for many people, that happens at night. So if you see a cortisol pattern that's starting to go up at night, you are in an arousal pattern throughout the night. Symptom-wise, what you're going to see is you're going to have insomnia, trouble falling or staying asleep, waking up with your monkey brain already going, okay? Anxiety, heart racing. So just so you know, the adrenal medulla hormones with the epinephrine, adrenaline, it's going to make your heart race. How many are like have your heart racing all night long or you wake up, right? That is a great symptom to know that you're in an adrenal arousal at an inappropriate time in the middle of the night. Okay. Yes. With adrenal arousal at inappropriate times, right? You really want to be looking for a supplement like ProCortex. And I'm going to go over some ingredients here. Okay. So when you're looking at ProCortex, okay, we think of this as like a cortisol calmer, right? Michi says palpitations were terrible. So what are adrenal herbs and supplements that can calm cortisol? Calm it, right? So this is why ProAdrenix is in the morning. You want a glandular support in the morning because cortisol naturally rises. But at night, it's supposed to go down, everybody. It's supposed to really go down. And so when you're looking at ProCortex, the number one ingredient in there is the philodendron, which is from the magnolia tree. Okay. We're talking about, if you go ahead and take I know this is going to be hard for people to see, so I'm not going to go into that. But these are well-studied ingredients where in the scientific Journal of International Society of Sports Nutrition, they put people on 4 weeks, just 4 weeks of an extract of philodendron. And what they found was that there was already, here's the data. There was a 18% decrease in their cortisol levels.
Wow.
18%.
Significant.
Yeah, if we've seen the adrenal curves of people of cortisol at night, 18% is a hell of a lot of a drop. There is a scientifically demonstrable 18% decrease in cortisol levels when people take this particular herb, which is an extract from the magnolia tree bark. Okay, that's in ProCortex. And second ingredient, which a lot of people know about, is ashwagandha. Okay. Ashwagandha, people will say, oh, I take it for adrenal support and this, that. But here's the other principle around using herbs to treat, using herbal medicine is that sometimes low dose of something could be used to treat, let's say, low adrenals, and high dose of something can be used to treat really high cortisol levels, right? And Jim just says here, I started ProCortex August 1st and no more afternoon, evening beast.
And by the way, shout out to Jim. Hi, Jim. Thanks for being here tonight. We just did an interview with Jim that you can look forward to coming out very soon. So, and he's doing so much better. I can't wait for everybody to hear his story.
Well, Jim's a really great example, right? If you look at Jim, I mean, there's a lot of us that are really, we are go, go, go. How many of you guys run your own businesses? How many of you guys, in a job that's go, go, go? And
we had multiple businesses too.
Multiple businesses, right? Yes. And go, go, go. But have never had your adrenals tested. Didn't even know what adrenal fatigue was. Didn't even know your cortisol was going into arousal all night long. That's Jim. That's me. How many people, right? How many people in here that's done testing with us and also my hormone masterclass found out that your cortisols were sky high, right? And Lachey said, ashwagandha will give your groove back. Well, here's the deal with ashwagandha, okay? So ashwagandha has been shown to improve athletic performance, memory, other hormone production, fertility, inflammation, and even blood sugar. But it's dose dependent. So it's not like, I'm just going to go take some ashwagandha. So if you want ashwagandha for the purpose of calming cortisols, that's a dose that's in ProCortex.
Oh, that's so interesting because I had a previous doctor tell me, oh, just drink some ashwagandha tea. But now that you're telling me that you need a specific dose, you don't really necessarily get that when you're just taking a tea or whatnot until you have something like ProCortex, which is researched and backed up for the exact amount you need.
You need the right dose for the right purpose. So there's certain herbs that at certain doses will do different things, which is why that's the reason I love ashwagandha. And people are like, oh, adrenal health, do this or that. Well, what dose are you going to give somebody? So in ProCortex, the ashwagandha amount is specifically designed to work with the other herbs to actually calm cortisol. So you're not only getting this one herb that's well studied for that, you're getting the right dose of also the second herb, ashwagandha, that's designed to actually calm cortisol instead of raise it.
Hey.
I know. And then on top of it, with when you're looking at ProCortex, you're looking at what calms arousal, other herbs include the banaba. Okay. There's also morale root. There are multiple herbs that work synergistically together. So what I love is 4 main ingredients, right? Not go look at some of your bottles that you have. Some of these herbs have like 10 plus ingredients. How many, for me, it's really important to look at what are some main key, well-studied ingredients that work together really well to do the job it needs to do. And that's what ProCortex does. And that's how these herbs work together to do that. And it's a vegetarian formula for that reason. These are all herbs that work really well together to do that. So there's a time for glandular support, i.e. morning, stage 2, stage 3 adrenal fatigue. There's a time for herbal combination formulas that are really good, specifically to calm cortisol at night. And that's what ProCortex is for. So typically people will be taking, if they're doing ProAdrenix, they'll be doing 2 in the morning. If they're doing ProCortex, they'll be doing 2 at night. Many people need both. Okay. Something to help the cortisol rise in the morning and something to calm the cortisol at night. I'm sure there's a couple people in there that are on both, depending on what their patterns are.
Yes. Yes. Rev you up and chill you out and also get your groove back at the same time. Okay, that was a really good outline of the supplementation that can really be helpful for adrenals. But some people think that's all you can do. It's just about supplementation.
It's not all just about supplementation. I think a big lesson that's the most powerful way to actually rewire and help your adrenals heal is sleep.
Oh, the elusive sleep. And I know for some people it's like, oh yes, if only I could have sleep. But that's the thing. When you start implementing some of these other factors that you're talking about, supplementation being one of them, you'd be amazed at the sleep that then you can get.
Yeah. And what happens during sleep is when you actually sleep, believe it or not, I had a training on insomnia. So if you guys are interested in that training, put the insomnia training in chat. I did a training around insomnia. Insomnia, the ability to fall asleep, and most importantly, the ability to stay asleep actually is 100% dependent on blood sugar regulation, just so you guys know.
You're not going to hear that anywhere else.
It really is. Do you guys know the reason you wake up in the middle of the night? Michi was saying she had a fast heart rate. How do I remember this stuff?
Yeah.
She is. She has, I bet you she has severe insomnia. And I bet you 100% she never thought before it was because she was having low blood sugar episodes in the middle of the night. Right. And I'm interested to see if Michi or anybody else through either my Hormone Masterclass or the Transform program figured out, oh my gosh, it was horrible low blood sugar in the middle of the night. So how do you bust through that? For me, it's actually food, believe it or not. It's actually like making sure specifically like dinner has a very well-balanced amount of fat, protein, and fiber. And maybe even a snack that's fat-based at night, right? That's very high protein or fat-based right before bed. And a lot of people will tell me that, oh, I can't possibly eat right before bed. Well, this is where Golden Balance really came in. There's medical food. So you could eat something that's high in fat. Like, I did a fat bomb video where I actually shared my recipe and cooked and showed you guys how I made fat bombs. If you're interested in seeing the fat bomb video or the fat bomb recipe, put fat bomb in chat. I did a cooking live where I made it live. But a lot of people I've worked with will swear to you that, fat bomb was huge, big deal. And Marcus is saying Golden Balance was a huge game changer for him. Right. Mm-hmm. So, if you can't eat it, drink it. And so Golden Balance, just so you guys know, I'm going to go ahead and just share the screen really. Give me a second, everybody.
Pulling up the product for Golden Balance, and it is a cult like favorite when people start taking Golden Balance. Truly, they're like, I gotta try it before it runs out.
Well, it's been dubbed the hug and mug, just so you guys know. It's been dubbed the hug and the mug by all the clients and people who've been buying it and rebuying it. Cindy actually was the one who coined. I think we interviewed Cindy, and she was going on and on about how this is like a hug and a mug. Well, I'm going to tell you guys why it works, and you can do this with food. You don't have to get Golden Balance. You can do this with food. But what makes Golden Balance amazing to balance that blood sugar, to ground your blood sugars right before bed so your adrenal cortisol can go down, is that number one, okay? There are herbs in it. So it's medicinal herbs in there. So it's really highly bioavailable curcumin that is in there. What does curcumin do? Balance your blood sugar, decrease inflammation, help you with your hormones, helps you balance your hormones, including your adrenal hormones. So it's right in there, right? Number two, it's got fat. So it's got coconut solids in there, okay? It's got protein with the coconut solids and collagen in there. So there's additional collagen in there. So it is medical grade collagen designed to go directly into the bloodstream. So you got the protein, it's delicious, and it tastes good. You know it has to taste good, Fitnet. I'm a foodie. So for me, right? I have stayed so many PJs.
Right?
TMI.
She's talking about the Golden Balance. We're not on to back to the erotic book.
So my thing is like, if you can eat a snack that's really high in protein or fat right before bed, all the more power to you. I even did a video where I made fat bombs with it. So if you want fat bomb recipe, do that. But if you want to do it the easy way, or drink it, I would do Golden Balance. And what I would do with Golden Balance is I would put it, I would like heat up some like maybe coconut cream or coconut milk or a mixture 50-50, like heat it up in the microwave, put in the, or heat on the stove, put in the Golden Balance, froth it up. Oh my God, it's so creamy and delicious. And you don't have to do a high volume. If you're worried about waking up to pee at night, you can do 4 ounces, right? I think so that's another way is eat the fat or protein like a lot with dinner, or ground it with a snack right before bed, or drink it. Do a drink like Golden Balance right before bed. You're going to sleep like a dream, and you're going to help your cortisol go down. Okay.
This was groundbreaking information when you first revealed this to me about having that snack before bed, because I've had doctors tell me, do not eat before bed, whether you have reflux or whatever problems. They said, whatever you do, don't eat before bed. When in actuality, you need a smart snack, something in you before bed to help you accomplish all of these things you were just addressing.
Here's the issue is that for people with adrenal fatigue, you really need to ground your blood sugar throughout the night. And the problem with the generalized advice that you shouldn't eat before bed is that it is setting you up to have a low blood sugar plummet in the middle of the night, guaranteeing that you're going to wake up.
Yeah.
Right? So I'm hoping this makes scientific sense. And don't just take my word for it. Anybody who's learned this from me in any of our programs, I mean, tell me what your experience with that fact is. When you ground right before bed with fat and protein, what happens with your sleep? Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then when you combine it with ProCortex or something like that, does it just multiply the effect?
Exactly. So let's talk about like, how do we get the results faster, right? Can you take the ProCortex before bed? Can you do Golden Balance before bed? Can you do ProCortex with a fat bomb right before bed? There's many ways with which you can do this. You don't want the fat bomb. You don't want to make extra effort. Okay. How about saving an extra drumstick from dinner and eating it right before bed? You know, like there's so many ways with which you can do that. Marcus says Golden Balance did more for me in the first few weeks than my prescription sleeping pills did in 3 years. Thank you, Marcus. Yeah.
Yeah. Everybody's sleeping through the night feeling refreshed.
Right. So there we go. So you got to sleep. You got to ground right before bed with fat and protein. That is sleep grounding right there. Boom.
Okay. What about, are there other factors that play into this? For instance,
so here's a out of the box conversation. Okay. Mm-hmm. And it goes back to fight or flight. It goes back to stress or trauma, which is that, did you know just 20 minutes of feeling stressed or being in fight or flight will change the amount of good and bad bacteria in your gut? The ratio completely starts to shift and change.
20 minutes.
20 minutes.
It makes you really want to rethink how you respond, if at all possible, to stressful situations when you know that much change can happen.
It is literally changing your gut bacteria. And here's the other thing. Your gut bacteria is making hormones and processing hormones. Mm-hmm. So it's sending all these things, all these cytokinins out. It's sending signals that affect, for example, how much serotonin your gut is making. And that goes in your bloodstream, how much serotonin, which is a calming brain hormone, is making in your brain. There is a huge role of gut bacteria in hormonal health, in how much hormones you make. And hormonal health don't just impact, sex hormones and your adrenals. These are brain hormones that it impacts. When I talked about the adrenal medulla, it makes norepinephrine and epinephrine. Well, those are also what we call brain neurotransmitters, brain hormones. So there's a huge impact between the gut bacteria and the level of hormones that are in your brain.
It's fascinating. I mean, it really is fascinating to think about this. And like, I know you're blowing some people's mind. Wow, the comments are saying, because where
right?
else are you going with this?
Well, then what are you supposed to do about it? What are you going to do about it? Well, I'm going to give you one lifestyle way to deal with it and one biohack way to deal with it. So one lifestyle thing that you can do is increase the amount of fiber that you eat, because the good bacteria in your gut loves fiber. Loves fiber. Fiber is what we call prebiotic. Prebiotic feeds your probiotics to help them grow and multiply. So if you eat more fiber, okay, and I prefer fiber in terms of leafy greens. So your cruciferous vegetables, you can never have enough. Eating a ton of cruciferous vegetables like kale, like broccoli, like Brussels sprouts can really up-level the amount of prebiotic fiber that's going to feed the good bacteria in your gut. So that's number one tip, is 6 cups of fruit and vegetables, fiber, high fiber diet would be really helpful for the gut bacteria for adrenal and brain health. Number 2, this is the fast track way of doing it. Feed your gut good bacteria all the time, right? Which is take an awesome probiotic. In fact, take 2, okay? Rotate 2 probiotics. Rotation is the spice of, make it zesty for your probiotics in your gut. Don't just do the same thing over and over. No vanilla probiotics.
Oh gosh, this theme is continuing. Now we're keeping it spicy in the gut.
So
Gotta
let me tell you something. So variety is really important in the probiotics that you give your gut. So I've done multitude of training on probiotics and the role of probiotics on the gut microbiome. If you want the access to those trainings, put probiotic training, and in the comment section, we will get it to you. I like to target specific strains that increase what we call keystone species in your gut, the utility workers in your gut. But I also like to also rotate it with probiotic strains that are really anti-infection against the bad bacteria in your gut. So you like to mix it up. So the best way to do this, Proflora AI is the base. Okay, that's the general Monday through Friday one. And then Saturday and Sunday is Proflora GI. And that's going to be your Saturday, Sunday one. That's a really good rotation. That's, I swear, is because you know what it is that the Proflora AI has strains in there that are really amazing for blood sugar and hormone balance. And the Proflora GI has a specific, well-studied strain in there that's really great against the bad bacteria that are more infectious, that is working against the keystone species. And so I love being able to rotate these, because if you give them the same thing all the time, they get bored. They really do. So don't think there's one super probiotic and that's all you're going to take for the rest of your life. Find 2 to 3 and start to rotate them on a regular basis. But you want to find ones that have specific strains that does the things that you need it to do, because we are in the realm with probiotic scientific studies that we're really getting into specific strains for specific purposes. So don't be fooled by the Amazon 6 billion, 8 billion, 9 billion brand that has 9 billion strains of shit that does nothing.
They're not doing anything. And are they really actually even live by the time they get to you? I always wonder.
Blah, blah, blah. Like, right. And even if they're live, if they're the super cheap strains that does nothing, but they're claiming there's millions or billions of it.
What good is
that? What good is do? Do you really want 1 billion pounds of trash in you? Right.
Well,
but it's 1 billion.
That's still trash.
Zillion pounds of trash.
We'll pass.
Yeah. And then, And then finally, I think to close this out, I would love for you guys, if there's like something you learned that's a truth bomb here, I'd love to know what was one thing that you really learned that was helpful. The other thing is, I don't have to do just one part for adrenal training. If you guys think that there's something that I should really do a second adrenal live in the coming weeks, tell me some topics you really would love me to cover, right? Mm-hmm. Because there's so much. I haven't even dabbled into how the adrenals are linked actually with your sex hormones and your thyroid.
Fascinating.
And with insulin. So there is this huge symphony with which your adrenals is connected with all your other hormone making organs. Your adrenals don't operate alone. So there's a huge part of adrenal contribution, which I hinted to your ovarian hormones and your testicular hormones, right?
So if anybody wants to hear more about that, let us know. I mean, is this something that you find exciting, interesting, you want to learn more about? Because I don't think you're going to be able to search for this information and find it anywhere else.
Yeah. And I actually want to close by talking about a case. His name is Mark, and it's a client that we're currently working with right now. And it highlights just how frequently adrenals are ignored, just like Jim's was. Mark is a 27-year-old musician, who is dealing with a lot of anxiety, fatigue, and just for a couple years, right? And what really pains me about somebody, a young person, highly creative, productive, being grappled with these symptoms is that he's never had his hormones tested or his adrenals tested. He's never heard anything about the fact that blood sugar is related with insomnia or the level of anxiety that's going on in his life. And I can tell you, I reviewed Mark's hormones and adrenal results last week in one of our programs. And like, in one way, you get really frustrated at why these things aren't addressed and why we, leave our 27-year-olds hanging, our 45-year-olds who own 3 companies hanging, our people with, all these other hormonal problems hanging. Why are we not testing? Because data is king. So we tested Mark's results and went over it last week. And what we found was literally Mark had testosterone level of like a 10-year-old.
Wow.
Why? That's the thing, though. Most people would have given Mark testosterone if he was lucky enough to get his testosterone checked, which he was not for the last several years. all through all these health problems. He never had that tested. And the testosterone levels showed that he had extremely low testosterone, right? And it's not uncommon that I find somebody, a male or even female with symptoms like this, who have hormone levels of like a 10-year-old or a 90-year-old.
And then given totally the wrong treatment, you're saying. It sounded like you were alluding to he would have been given then testosterone.
Well, that's the biggest travesty here that I'm so glad we avoided for Mark and for someone like Mark, Jim, or all your Dan, all your males out there, is that if they're lucky enough with these chronic health symptoms to get their testosterone levels tested, they're going to be, a lot of them are going to be really low, or erroneously told it's normal, because those normal ranges in the blood are crap. So that's the problem. There's already obstacles there. And then what happened is when I went over Mark's results, I was like, what's the real cause? What's the real reason? Right? Because if you don't go with the real reason, you're just going to say, let's give this 27-year-old testosterone level. Who the heck should be giving a 27-year-old testosterone so that it will shut down his own testosterone making for the rest of his life? Who really should be doing that? Do no harm? What the hell are we doing giving testosterone level in high dose to people with low testosterone as the first option?
Well, and that highlights the problem here, Dr. Maggie, is that how do you find a doctor for this? I mean, really?
I think that it is challenging. And I think that being a practicing family physician myself the first 10 years and the last 17 years as a functional medicine physician, your family practitioner and your endocrinologist really are not trained on how to effectively evaluate female and male sex hormones, number one. Number two, they have zero training around adrenals. The number one reason why Mark had low testosterone was because his adrenals was in stage 2, stage 3 adrenal fatigue, from my memory. We have a 27-year-old guy with stage 3 adrenal fatigue. Really? Really? That's okay?
No.
That's really okay. And I'm the testosterone expert in my testosterone clinic. I'm just going to give him testosterone. That's the care he's going to get if he's lucky. And the truth is his adrenals really sucked. Right? And he's the first person to say, guess what? I took Golden Balance. I didn't even go over my hormone results yet. I just took Golden Balance at night and my sleep is already better. And I'm already starting to feel better, which was the case actually before we even went over the hormone results. And then when we went over the hormone results, we went through how we're going to fix his adrenals so that this 27-year-old musician can get back to playing. How about within the next month, within the next 2 months? Let's not wait 40 years for this guy, guys. Right? That's unacceptable. Right?
Yeah, and just thinking about how his life at 27 years old, so much ahead of it, so much that he needs the support and he needs these healthy hormones and he needs his adrenals in line to be able to then go live the life he wants to live.
Absolutely, 100%. And it requires him to find a physician like me who actually not only tests his sex hormones, but fully tests his adrenals and fully deep dives with him into, well, how are we going to turn around this adrenal fatigue he has? And his number one problem that was causing was his blood sugar. His blood sugar was insanely fluctuating throughout the day, which was his number one health problem.
Okay. And that answers the question that Pam just had, is how did you address it then? So that's the focus then.
That's what I did, Pam. Yeah, we addressed and he's already sleeping better even before we went over the results. So we already know when you sleep, you make testosterone. So it was already improving by the time we were already going over his results. But we also added adrenal supplementation to really target and support his adrenals. And that's going to help him make more testosterone because you know what? DHEA, some of these other hormones, progesterone, these hormones are precursors to help him make more testosterone. We're going to help with some of these precursor hormones. We're going to support with some herbal and glandular support. And we're going to ground his sleep and his blood sugar. Boom. And you got a recipe for success within weeks.
Dr. Maggie, this has been so informative. I know we're coming up a couple of minutes to the top of the hour, but just this person saying Dr. Maggie is a root cause rebel. So true, because here you are giving us these myths and these truths about adrenal fatigue. Number one of them, a chief among being, some people don't even want to admit that adrenal fatigue is a real thing. And you've just expertly outlined all of the facets that go into this. So appreciate the time today and all of the information. It was invaluable.
If you know somebody who could benefit from this information, tag their name under this or share this with them. If you found something valuable with this, give me a thumbs up on this video. And if you have a suggestion for another live you would like me to do to address adrenal health, put it the topic in chat. I would love to know. These lives are shaped by your comments. So I would love to know what's piquing your interest. What curiosity question has this raised in you about adrenal health? Fill my comments up, and I'd love to come right back at you in the next couple of weeks with more on adrenal fatigue.
Well, thank you for the information, and thank you for keeping it zesty.
All right, everybody. Have a great day.